Hey guys, I am Gray with Across the Multiverse, and we are jumping right back into our next Max0r's video. I had just finished the trilogy as of right now that he has out for Elden Ring videos, and at the very beginning of all of this, I had seen that he also had a Bloodborne video. I myself am a very big Bloodborne fan. It is my favorite game out of all of the Souls games. I don't think it's the best, but it's my favorite. For a very long time, my favorite game was, Dark Souls, and then I think it wasn't until I had played and beat Dark Souls 3 multiple times that I would always go back to Bloodborne. That one was my game. And I know everybody else has got their own, like a lot of people love the original Dark Souls, and hey, I'm one of them. It was my favorite game for probably the longest time. I knew all the lore, knew a ton of stuff about that game, down to like the frame data and the parry stuff and everything else. But just, I don't know. It's the Lovecraftian, Gothic Victorian, like monsters setting that I think does it for me. I'm a big horror guy, and that's just such a good setting. But we were going to get into Max0r's new to me, but Max0r's review of Bloodborne, and I see that this one's a little on the shorter side. Here, let's bring you over. I hear that is little on the shorter side compared to some of his more recent videos, but I still think that it's probably going to be awesome regardless. So, I wanted to watch it, and we can catch my live recording of it. I'm curious as to what he's going to say, but we can definitely see right now.
The video has spoilers. Bloodborne is a Lovecraftian horror RPG that no one understands by definition, where the player is free to attack hordes of human children at will and consume their innards. If that in-depth and engaging anti-baby gameplay appeals to you, keep listening, because it gets worse. In this game, you play as John Bloodborne, a foreigner incapable of speech without the use of sign language, and stricken with Habsburg disease, comes to the ancient city of London, seeking treatment for the sins of his cousins. In doing so, he will begin hallucinating talking dolls, spider people, and the great journeying further, John Bloodborne becomes conscripted into the service of a gay elder god and a 60-year-old man he keeps as a pet, and is given the ultimate task of killing an invisible infant in order to cure his anemia. To accomplish said Herculean task, the player must journey through dark forests, terrifying nightmares, and the meth-ridden alleyways of a post-Brexit Britain, slaying monsters, exploring, and tricking women into being impregnated by gods so you can consume the child.
Yeah, it's a little fucked
up. It's an
up.
Excellent realization of a Metroidvania with something new around every corner. A great action RPG which pits you against insurmountable odds and extreme challenges, and has a gripping story and lore about discovering the eldritch truth. So if you can, play it yourself, because I'm not going to hold back on the details. It's no secret that my reviews are entertainment first, so I don't suggest using me as genuine advice. However, most people can't play this game, ever, because you have to buy a $400 magical box sold by the wizard Sony in order to experience it. And even then, you get to
PlayStation
see it in
guy.
an amazing 30 frames per second with no anti-aliasing. Port this game to PC, I beg of you.
Please.
In fact, I can assume that a lot of people watching this video will basically never play the game, but keep watching.
Like, please. Okay, I know that Bloodborne 2 is never going to happen. At least probably not by FromSoft. At this point, the copium's gone. I can't. I love this game so much. It did well at the time, and it was a system seller. But it was one of those things that I don't think that they're going to do it again. And as much as I love it, I would love for there to be another one, but I really don't think they're going to, unless they give it to Bluepoint, which I think is the people who did the the Demon Souls remake. I would love for them. Oh my god, I would love for them to do a Bloodborne remake and do a PC port of it. That would be so good. Just at 60 frames, and for PC launch, that'd be chef's kiss. Just Be beautiful.
Because I'm hilarious and original. Do that, and I can give you the full, unfiltered, uncensored, unsubstantiated, and unsportsmanlike experience that is Bloodborne. The gameplay is what makes this game great, and the easiest way to describe it is simple but complicated. On a simple level, your baby brain is responsible for only 2 tasks, dodging and hitting. And dodging in this game renders you temporarily invincible. Sounds easy, right? Wrong, because every single enemy is adjusted to keep pace with you. Basic enemies are basically able to whoop your ass into fucking non-existence. Every encounter, therefore, is tense and engaging. When you kill someone, it's because you were faster and had more meth than they did. On a complicated level, you have a gun, and normally bullets hurt people, but in London, bullets are suggestion, like the Geneva Convention. Here in England, it's all
you
about
spec
the knife
into
bins.
them.
Except when you shoot somebody mid-attack, you gain the mystical and arcane ability to plunge your fist through their ribcage like Mortal Kombat and rip out their heart, which is considered rude and a slight annoyance. This extends to behind them if you charge an attack, which sometimes causes you to reach up a pig's asshole and rip out the prostate like fruit by the foot. Side note, the most optimal farming route for currency in this game is called Murgo's Pig Fisting Route. See, I changed
at least in the overworld.
And in this one, you sneak up behind this guy and do him the dirty. Then entice these 2 swinular bastards to be mauled to death by members of Organization 13. Repeat 50 times. On a complicateder level, every single weapon in the game has 2 different modes with 2 different movesets. And transforming between them gives you special attacks, in addition to running attacks, plunging attacks, on a theoretical...
A theoretical. I'm assuming he's gonna say a theoretical physicist level. The amount of attacks that you have with the game or with weapons in those games is nuts. You also have side dashing attacks, which not a lot of people know about. And when I would play Bloodborne PvP, because I was a fucking nerd, the one for the scythe was good. It was real good. It was for the transform attack. The side dash transform attack was nuts. But that's just the level of craft that they put in this fucking game, and it's so good.
Physicist level, your character memorizes squiggly lines and fridge art created by gods for passive bonuses that work regardless of weaponry. My favorites are more money, and more money they stack. Finally, on a meta-theoretical chiropractic level, every weapon is customizable with different gem slots that give differing effects for your attacks. And
there's a lot of customization in this game.
Change all of the stats of the weapon, like making a fucking spear do more damage based off of intelligence. There's definitely more and a lot of strategy in how you level up your character, but I assume that you know how to level up.
So shoot somebody with your mind bullets too.
Prowess, you may be wondering, Max0r, who are these crusty abominations that you're fighting on screen? Well, to learn that much, we're going to have to delve into the lore. So buckle your britches, bitches, because this shit is wild. If I say something questionable, just accept it as fact. I can be trusted. 60 years ago, 20 rowdy college students took their education extremely seriously because they found woman Cthulhu. She was just in a portable toilet downstairs. Also, because they were bored, they beat to death a god of the sea with some bats, but that's a story for later. It turns out the entire world is ruled and created by a race of elder gods beyond human comprehension called the Great Ones. Figuring this out, they got Cthulhu's blood and were like, we can make a religion out of this. Because it turns out the blood can heal people, which is really good due to all the knife crime. So everyone starts drinking it a little too much and they get the money to build 36 cathedrals, but it turns out eventually
they're pretty much
turns you into a werewolf. So
right on
the
top
church
of one
hires
another.
a guy named German to go fight the beasts with an organization known as the Hunters, but there's too many beasts, so he gives up. Now the knife crime is increased even more, and German sort of goes insane and creates a life-size doll of one of his students who is an 8-foot-tall Amazonian. He also canonically has sex with it. The moon god, for some reason, kind of takes notice of this and is like, alright, listen, I'm building a suicide squad. I will bring your waifu to laifu if you serve me for all time as my slave. German reasonably thinks that this is a great deal and is imprisoned in a dream. This is where you come in. See, the moon god assassinates baby gods for fun, but needs a hitman to go into the real world to do it since he's confined to the 9th dimension. So in addition to fighting all manner of giant beasts and uncovering dark secrets, the true aim of this game is to commit infanticide. There's enough bullshit here to fill tax legislation, so comment your own poorly summarized Bloodborne lore below. And for the rest of us non-shills, we have ample time to explain more of what makes this game great. Yes, you have been jinked. I am talking about bosses before I talk about the levels. In most video games, bosses cap off areas, but in Bloodborne, areas are preambles to a dick flattening, and nothing will challenge your skill in quite the same way. Except for the goddamn Witches of Hemwick, who were placed into the game for disability access.
Not the best fight in the game.
Bloodborne is a hard game. We don't even know if a games journalist can beat it. But it's hard in a fair way that tests your skills and reaction time, except for Lawrence, but I'll get back to Lawrence.
Lawrence is such a piece of shit.
Apart is that the challenge makes it feel like you're a really small dude jabbing a toothpick into a building-sized deer demon. So yeah, I would be impressed if you killed that. But not only that, unlike Dark Souls, every single boss reacts meaningfully to how you attack them. Large beasts can have their bones cracked and their tendons wound into a slinky. Bone boys can be knocked over and have their marrow shipped. And human enemies will wince and recoil when they see your height difference. As well, every boss punishes you for cowardice and actively discourages backpedaling with their forward momentum, causing every fight to be an elaborate dance with a thrilling back and forth. Unless you're fighting Rom, who is the really hungry caterpillar if he had a legion of arachnid slaves who threw their heads underground like ostriches.
Fucking
we don't talk about him. And while
I fucking hated fighting Rom. She was fucking awful. Jesus Christ. Not her alone, or not the fucking caterpillar alone. It's all the fucking spiders.
we're on the subject of bad bosses, this motherfucker, let me tell you something. The humanoid bosses in this game are paradoxically the most dangerous.
Yes.
But Mikolash is a psychological hazard that will hurt you personally. This boss literally feels
throw
like
poison
cut
knives at him,
content
though.
because the fight centers around chasing him, and his direction depends on RNG, making him an actual speedrun killer. When you corner him, he uses one attack, and then you chase him again, where he gains the power to insta-kill you. God forbid you're hit by it, because that's 10 minutes gone. Here's a tip. Save up 10 poison knives and steal from your family if you must. Then wait until he jumps down this hole, poison him repeatedly, and watch him spaz the fuck out until death. You will thank me. But as a result of everyone who isn't Miko shit, conquering a boss in this game is absolutely
He's not a very good boss
on a
either.
level that other games cannot match. It's only because the odds are stacked against you in ways that don't feel bullshit most of the time that conquering them is the main reason I play. And their fights are undoubtedly the best I've ever done in video games. But that isn't most of the time in the game. In fact, a lot of your time is spent exploring the areas, so let's get into that. Lesson 1 in area design. Where the fuck am I going? Exploration is the name of the game, except it's called Bloodborne. Only this time, you don't bring smallpox and kill 20 million people. We're looking at a solid 10 this time, because the main enemies in this game are British townspeople. It's how the developers made sure you didn't feel bad about killing them. The plague of beasts infecting London causes people's teeth to become beast-like, makes you aggressive at night, and slurs your speech. So it's up to you to stop them, as a hunter should. If you don't look up where to go next in this game, good fucking luck. People get lost all the time. Get used to it. This game doesn't do exploration like, oh look, there's loot in this hallway, my dopamine's gonna go crazy. That's baby shit. This is daddy's exploration, where you find a route back to a place you were in 10 hours ago. And I hope you weren't expecting a mini-map or any map. Every single hallway is a rabbit hole of discovery, and your hand isn't held. Case in point, Cathedral Ward is a level, but feels like a hub area because it connects to fucking everything. And where you start the game is in the middle of a loop-de-loop involving torturous experimentation. Just look at the fucking map of this game. Everything overlaps.
I love it. It's
there
beautiful.
There is a level called Nightmare Lecture Hall, and no, it does not connect to the Altar of Despair, although you would think that. Fittingly, the Lecture Hall is the smallest area, and more fittingly, 90% of the combat is graduates throwing cum at you. The game also has 2 completely secret areas that you would not find.
Oh, Castle Canehorns is so good.
Enter, but I don't want to do calculus. And what you get at the end? Upper Cathedral Ward is legitimately a horror area in a game loved for its combat, because it's filled with enemies who act out my greatest fears. Stealing currency permanently.
I hate those fuckers.
Every time I talk about it. Castle Canehurst is proof that From Software hates us all, since the best area in the entire game requires you to go to the Field of Corn in Ohio and trek down the wall, though. But it's worth it to invade the house of that parasitic queen dwelling in her demented castle, so that she may feel the wrath of the proletariat. All we have to do is kill Prince Philip, who guards the way as the eternal lich. On top of this, there are numerous NPCs and NPC quest lines spread throughout the world, all with a series of interactions with each other depending on location and timing. For instance, you could direct nuns, prostitutes, and Prince Philip to a church run by a lonely black sludge, then perform enough blood transfusions to send the nun into a yandere rage. Or you could direct them to the nice woman who runs the clinic down the street, who only wants to help and assist others. Then take a strange path through the forest and into her clinic to discover that she has been experimenting on all of them in order to create the Blue Man Group. And if you want, you can take the umbilical cord away from her schizophrenic.
That's actually not the real Yosefka. She dies and gets turned into one of the Blue Man Group.
Gas and eat it. The sky's the limit in Bloodborne quest lines. And you know what my favorite quest line is? The one where you descend into literal hell, complete with eternal
fucking
punishment,
DLC is
insanity,
so
and
good.
Femboy fishing. The
Femboy
scariest
fishing.
of them all. I'm of course talking about the DLC, the only DLC for this game. And if you play through Bloodborne, you have to play through the DLC. I'm not giving you a fucking choice. So
you really do.
Why,
It's
you should play the best
so
expansion
good.
ever made since Spore Galactic Adventures. Come with me on this amazing journey to find the secrets of the Bloodborne, the old hunters.
Oh, and the fucking
I want you to imagine hell.
Ludwig
Now
music.
imagine hell written by H.P. Lovecraft. It would be filled with squids, immigrants, and air conditioning. This DLC has none of that, except the squids. For you see, those college kids from the lore section of the video were built fucking different. They experimented on an entire village and possibly beat up a god of the sea so fucking bad that her consciousness in the 9th dimension died. We spent an entire game killing an infant, and these guys somehow killed the MILF god. But anyways, in the process of this, it cursed them and all of the hunters to be doomed to a hell upon death, where they will hunt in a bloodthirsty rage without rest for all eternity, indistinguishable from a political subreddit. Case in point, this is Ludwig. He's the first boss of the DLC and has a reputation for causing refunds. Not because he's bad, but because he's too good for you. The first phase is as difficult for me as
the first phase is kind of bullshit, but that second phase is so good.
But like every restaurant except Golden Corral, the rewards at the end are delicious because his second phase is even harder. Now, I'm not going to lie, this DLC has 4 bosses and 3 of the hardest bosses I have ever fought in any video game ever. So your ass will be clenched the entire time, and the fact that he's the 3rd hardest is fucking concerning. Some people tell me, Max0r, your videos have gotten me through tough times because they made me laugh. But like this boss, you are the one who is truly overcoming these challenges, and I believe in your ability to beat both of them. King. Boss Lightning Round. The DLC has many such cases of amazing bosses, including Lady Maria, who is the basis for German's extremely creepy.
I will say that to this day, I think that Ludwig has some of the best boss music in the Soul series. It bums me out that it has not been officially like released, but God, it is so good. It's so good. It's one of my favorite pieces from all of like FromSoft games. And there have been some bangers, obviously like Gwen's, and then you get the remixed one with the Soul of Cinder and 3. Like those are fucking awesome. And there's like some great fucking boss music in Elden Ring. Like, God, they're just such good. But that song is my favorite out of all of them.
The 8-foot-tall doll fetish, but we'll get back to that. And Orphan of Cause, who was born from the literal dead body of a god. If you enjoy the sensation of being beaten to death with a sharpened placenta, this is the fight for you. And as with everything that From Software makes, they threw in a boss that they didn't really finish and called it a day. I'm of course talking about Lawrence, which is a very mundane name for a fire monster locked in hell. Take my advice, don't fight Lawrence, you only lose a part of yourself. Since this boss fights you by dropping off his own legs and then violently vomiting and shitting lava. I've always wanted my game about dynamic dodging and elaborate fencing to be reduced to shitty area denial like it's Team Fortress 2. To wrap things up, the music of this game is pretty good, but the DLC music is fucking insane. I don't know what it is about Japanese composers being able to make better symphonies than the continent that invented them, but just take a listen.
So good.
Holy shit, I am alive right now.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought, as I do, that this game is just too good, that you would really rather be playing a shittier version of the game, such as the engagement of the Chalice Dungeons? I, of course, jest. They're fine, probably, except for half of them, because Bloodborne has an optional system of infinite dungeon generation for all of those who wish to break free of the shackles of good level design. Let's talk about how, and more importantly, why. First of all, Bloodborne has a system of dungeons that everyone shares and dungeons that are random. For my footage, I played the shared dungeons that you can be guaranteed the pain you witness on screen is
some pretty cool extra lore.
One of the biggest strengths of Bloodborne is the ability to have interesting and challenging enemy encounters gently rubbed with the blood-stained hands of Miyazaki. But I don't think I have to explain to you how randomizing almost every encounter in the game could be imbalanced. But fortunately, most enemies you encounter in the Chalice dungeons are new to spare British people your wrath, so you instead fight SCP-96. But why are we here?
The naked man.
The entire city of London was built on a Celtic burial ground, an ancient civilization called the Sumerians who discovered the healing powers of blood and then mysteriously disappeared. Wow, I wonder what happened. This is all cool in theory, but the reality is that most of the time you fight the same 4 enemies, and the first 3 dungeons can be replaced by Simon Says. My cat literally wouldn't notice. The Chalice dungeons are so forgotten that the developers use them to put joke enemies into the game. My favorite is the man who aggressively rolls at you stark naked naked wearing only his Nikes. The uniqueness also extends to the bosses, and they're actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
like
there's some fucking awesome
Watchdog
ones.
And the 3 overweight men. Do you remember that basic enemy from like 2 levels? He is the boss now. Rom, he is the boss again. The only thing stopping me from throwing myself into a wood chipper is the fact that Mikolash isn't back. And if you're going to have replays, you probably want to make sure that they're actually good. In fact, the bosses are so fucking imbalanced that the Watchdog fight is primarily comprised of instant
You gotta be careful not to get one shot,
I beat Sekiro backwards on a keyboard, and this shit is too fucking much. Now, normally that would be all, but the dungeons go deeper. What we have discussed so far is merely the surface, and there is a much darker syndicate lying just below. These places you must never venture, for they are the save edit dungeons. Whereby, through wizardry, the community are able to conjure up
some of the cool dungeons
and share them with the rest of the world. Of these secrets, there are only 2 that I shall reveal to you, and the first is the Cum Dungeon.
Hell
yes,
yeah.
You heard that correctly.
It's a Cum Dungeon, baby. Best way to farm in the game.
Is the name of the most optimal farming route ever conceived by the fucking cricket people who do this shit, whereby the player enters the chasm of place name and watches as a high-level boss yeets itself off a cliff. Murgo's pig fisting route can give you 10,000 echoes. This gives 83,000. And if you thought that sorcery was bad, it gets much worse. You can insert anything from the game files by save editing a chalice dungeon. Anything. This includes cut and unfinished content from the game that the developers forgot to delete.
I had heard about this when people were doing it.
Invisible lightning. Overall, the chalice dungeons are bad. They're not actually very fun to play, and yet I love them. Everyone loves them because they allow us to further explore a long-dead game with the help of a passionate community. Now, before we sign off,
I do think it's kind of cool that they did try to introduce like roguelike elements into some of the stuff. Like there was like the stories with the chalice dungeons themselves, but they didn't have, it was all like, obviously, like SoulsBorne lore. So a lot of the items and a lot of the enemies and then a lot of the environmental storytelling that was kind of going on through there. But there were some really cool bosses that you only get to fight in the chalice dungeons, that you don't get to fight anywhere else. And I think that was honestly pretty cool. And then the roguelike elements of like doing the random dungeons are pretty interesting too. Because you get the you just get more of the game, which is always nice. Though some of it does kind of end up looking very samey as you kind of continue on. So,
I know what you're
sorry. It's kind of a coin toss.
thinking. Max0r, what about the multiplayer? That I would love to talk
Great,
about with
if it was
all
still
the
going.
footage I have, but it's dead. If this game releases on PC, and it better, then I will talk about the multiplayer extensively. And finally, this game and this video would not be complete if I didn't talk about the Hunter's Dream. After all the combat, the battles, and the difficulty of this game, it's nice to have a place to recharge, purchase items, upgrade weapons, and watch as it violently burns to the ground. This is where you'll find German slowly wasting away as his soul remains captive for an eternity, and his doll waifu that he sold his existence to be with. She talks to you, levels you up, offers you advice, and German says you're allowed to have sex with her. When I fell down and felt defeated, she was there to pick me up. When I emoted at her randomly, she pretended to be impressed, and she was there, graciously standing in the background of this one shot that I took of myself. She is our waifu now, and the game is perfect and complete because she is in it. Now excuse me as I engage in the supplementary lore material. Should you get the game? Yes, absolutely. I am biased. In fact, you should physically enter Sony's headquarters and demand that it be ported to PC. I will be right there with you. Tasers will not stop me. I would like to thank the corrupt hackers and politicians funneling money into this channel directly from the taxpayer. If you would like to contribute your funds accrued through extensive federal government corruption, you can head to my Patreon to learn more. I would also like to thank the kind denizens of the Mythbusters Smut Discord who sent me half the memes in this video. And as always, thank you for watching.
Hell yeah. Such a good game. I know it's not necessarily the same as his incorrect summaries, but this was really good. I love this fucking game. It's so good. And honestly, like if you haven't played it, you should. I know that he had said, haha, magical mystical box of Sony to be able to actually play the game, but if you have a PlayStation 4 or like know somebody who has one, or whatever else, and they have Bloodborne, you should play it. It's so good. It probably does look a little dated now. I don't know if it was just this video, because I haven't been on Bloodborne in a while, or if it's really starting to show its age. But I noticed a few things that were a little like, oh, that doesn't look as crisp as some of the other games. But yeah, man, oh, Bloodborne. All right, so yes, a little bit more housekeeping on my end at the very end. Um, One more Max0r video from what I've seen. I think I'm gonna do his Resident Evil video, which, funny enough, it's right here. So I'll probably end up checking that one out, and then from there we might do a little other content in some other places, and then I might start doing some original content, and we can definitely go from there. I have been Gray with Across the Multiverse, and thanks for coming around and hanging out, and I hope to see you in the next one. All right, catch you guys later.